Victor, India, Foxtrot, 3, Delta, Alpha, Mike, 4, Juliet, Hotel, India, Golf, Victor,
Quebec,
Victor, Zulu, Sierra, Zulu, Oscar, Juliet,
3,
Hotel, Zulu, Golf, Kilo,
Sierra,
Zulu,
Victor,
Lima,
Charlie,
Papa,
Kilo,
Juliet,
Victor,
Charlie,
Charlie, Gold, Main Sellout.
Message. Waiting. Message. Group 1, 0. Group 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to Lux Occult, a podcast where we gleefully taunt the mundane, butcher the Latin language, and also discuss a variety of occult topics. I'm Lux Estrada, and if you are hearing this, then this show, and magic for that matter, is for you, if you want it. There are a lot of different ways to be more free, and magic can be one of them. As always, I don't speak for anybody but myself, and others can, will, and should disagree sometimes. How would we ever learn anything if we all agreed all the time, after all? And, like anybody should be, I'm willing to revise my opinions based on new evidence. Alright, so today I am stoked to have my bro back to talk more Chaos Magick concepts and practice. Today we're going to be talking about Thoughtforms, like Servitors, Egregores, Gods, and Godforms. We're also going to be talking a little bit about Hypersigils and the Astral Temple.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back on.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm glad you're here. First, real quick, let's talk about Ad Hoc.
Absolutely. Yeah, if y'all don't know, and if me and your lovely host Luxa, we are brother and sister, and we have another podcast together about history, and it is called Ad Hoc History.
Yep.
Available for your listening convenience on 7 different platforms, including Spotify.
Okay. Yeah, excellent plug. Well done.
Thank you. It's the first time I've had to do that, I think.
Yeah, you all should check it out. It's fun. We've been talking a lot about like Hellenistic history right now, but we're going to be covering all kinds of different stuff. I'd like to kind of think about some of the like motivations that people might have had and like try to look at it from sort of like a human perspective. Asher rolls in hot with the research and shit, and I provide the color commentary. So check it out. It's fun.
It is fun. We're kind of doing a logical progression through Western Civ, just kind of that as a base point, and then we're going to go from there. But yeah, our last episode was on the Jewish Wars. Interesting topic that leads well into early Christianity and many other things.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's interesting shit, and yeah, super important, pivotal points in history. So today's episode is meant to be an overview of some more occult and chaos magic concepts. Each one of the topics we're going to be talking about could easily get its own episode, but I wanted to provide some context for some of the stuff that comes up in some of the episodes where I like interview other magicians and other interesting folks, which there are several of coming up here. I'm so excited to share with y'all. The other reason I wanted to go into some of this stuff, like kind of survey style, is that like we're going to be talking about some stuff today that like when I first heard about it, like it got me like super excited about Chaos Magick, and I just think it's really fun and exciting stuff, and I wanted to share it. So, okay, Thoughtforms. What do you think that is?
Boy, I'm not really sure. I would think that's maybe like a mode of thought to get something you want, or I don't know. Tell me. All
right. So the term thought form describes the concept of an entity created directly and exclusively by the mind, whether unconsciously or consciously, which appears to develop a life of its own as an independent agent in the real world. So I got that from the Psi Encyclopedia.
So it's like your imaginary friend takes on a life of its own?
Sort of. I don't know. There's a lot of different versions of it. But yeah, that could certainly be one. Sure. Okay, so the Psi Encyclopedia goes on to say that thought forms are perceptible to other people, But I would definitely not include that as part of a definition that I would give when speaking of thought forms, like from the perspective of like maybe Chaos Magick, since many are not visible and are evident only through their actions. So there's a lot of different like definitions of what a thought form is. That's why I'm trying to go into it. But Servitors, which we will be talking about a little bit here in a second, are typically not visible to other people. So the Psi Encyclopedia goes on to give some pretty interesting historical info about thought forms in general, noting that the concept has a sort of like cross-cultural roots. This is sort of common for a lot of occulty things in general, actually, as a side note. A lot of cultural crossover and tie-ins and stuff. The Psi Encyclopedia goes on to like say some more stuff about it here, which is this. The belief in thought forms is the basis of several related concepts. Tulpa in Tibet, Puka in Germanic and Celtic cultures, and Jinn or Jinn in Arabic cultures. It is found in the works of Shakespeare. The character Puck in A Midsummer Night's Dream originates from the Germanic Celtic Puka. Thought forms are an integral part of theosophical beliefs. More recently, poltergeists and demonic phenomena have been attributed to thought forms as well. Okay, so that's interesting. Anyway, they mentioned theosophy, so I'm going to go ahead and like tell you real quick like what that is.
Is that Madame Helena?
Yeah, she was involved in all that. Another famous scoundrel, in my opinion, or maybe I don't know. I mean, such a complicated, obviously interesting historical figure. Yes, a lot of complexity there. A lot of people with very strong opinions. We're not going to talk too much about Helena Blavatsky right now, but we will talk about theosophy.
All right, cool.
So the word theosophy comes from the Greek theos, or gods, and sophos, which is wisdom. So it's like wisdom about the gods or the divine or something. Oxford defines theosophy as, quote, any number of philosophies maintaining that a knowledge of God may be achieved through spiritual ecstasy, direct intuition, or special individual relations, especially the movement founded in 1875 as the Theosophical Society by Helena Blavatsky and Harry Steele Olcott. Okay, by that broad definition, I think that a lot of traditions would be considered theosophical, right?
What was the criteria?
It's that you can know divine, that you can get knowledge of God. There's some way to achieve knowledge of the divine.
I mean, isn't that kind of religion? I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. So that's why I'm saying like this is the Oxford definition of the word, and okay,
yeah, it's got a lot of holes in it.
Kind of a wishy-washy definition.
But maybe sometimes these broad definitions are the most. I don't know. You sacrifice accuracy for. Yeah.
Cast a wider net.
Indeed. Okay, so the Psi Encyclopedia says this: the founding of this, because this is really funny. The founding of the Theosophical Society in 1875 was prompted by the claims of George Henry Felt, an American engineer, architect, and Egyptologist, that priests in ancient Egypt had the ability to evoke the forms of elemental entities and make them visible, and that he, Felt, had discovered how to emulate this power, and furthermore could demonstrate it. So I guess there was some disillusion, a little bit of an upset was caused when Felt entirely failed to demonstrate his new powers. But the idea of thought forms became an important topic, with two of its early leaders, Annie Besant and Charles Webster Leadbeater, who published a book called Thought Forms in 1905. I do want to note, like, Peter Carroll talks about this shit in, I think it's in Lieber Null, and he says, like, the amount of like shit you'd have to do to like get the thought form to like become visible, it's not worth it, and you probably won't believe it afterwards anyway because of like what you had to do to get yourself there, so it's like a complete waste of time. So I don't know, that's what his opinion is, just noting there.
Is this maybe kind of like what Faust was up to when he was locked himself in his study and was like trying to figure out the secrets of the occult? Kind of the same thing?
I don't remember. Was he like externalizing his desires into like an external entity? I
mean, the devil comes and talks to him, so maybe.
Was the devil some kind of tulpa or thought form in Faust? Fascinating.
he has a homunculus in it, which is kind of like the first thing, which is weird.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of symbolism and shit too. Like, creating the homunculus is like one of the things in alchemy. Like
Right.
one of the, can we make life without
God or what?
Yeah, like whatever, without breeding it basically from other life. And then I was talking about this with some people the other day. Like, is AI a homunculus if we consider it to actually be sent? I don't know.
Jesus, I think it probably would be, right?
I don't know though. If
it's alive?
Yeah, is it? I don't know. Yeah, see, that's the whole question. Like, I don't even think biologists fully agree on like what the definition of alive is.
No, definitely don't.
So if we can't even define what it is, how can we?
Yeah,
I don't
some
know.
Big problems there, isn't there?
There's some problems. That's okay. We don't need to worry about those problems right now. We have Thoughtforms to talk about.
Oh yeah. Just on the side note, I've seen that Felt guy, his crazy book about ancient Egypt at work before. I work at a bookstore.
Oh my god! Yeah,
we sold it for like a couple $100, I think.
I was gonna say that sounds valuable.
Yeah. It was really cool too. It was all these weird, I don't know, sacred geometry and sketches and.
That sounds dope.
It was cool. Yeah, we tried to read it and we could not make any sense of it. Like.
Yes. Kind of.
Yeah, it was complete nonsense.
Complete nonsense. Yes. That is a sweet spot. Anyway. Just kidding. Okay, so in the book Thoughtforms, so this book that Annie Besant and Charles Webster Leadbeater published in 1905. In the book, Thoughtforms were depicted as forms that various emotions, thoughts, and actions may take. The authors identified 3 types of thoughtforms. Those that take the shape of the thinker, so they look like you. Those that take the form of a material object, like, I don't know, maybe you can think yourself a chair to sit in, maybe? And those which express feelings, often as an aura or colored glow around the person. So Annie Besant also introduced the idea of ensouled thought forms as well as their benevolent and destructive elementals or metaphysical forces.
Ooh.
All right.
Sounds intense.
Are so far so good?
I mean, I don't want to sound offensive here, but the first thing that does come to my mind is psychosis.
Yeah.
If you're imagining elementals around you and stuff, but sorry, you can edit that out.
No, I think that's actually okay to talk about for sure, because if you really look at it technically, all of our sense data is hallucinatory in some way.
Sure.
So, I don't know. You could say that about our everyday lives too, that it's all psychosis. I don't know.
Well, I guess what I meant is maybe more schizophrenia. Or maybe that's religious visions. In the past, that was religious visions.
Yeah, I don't know. This stuff is not very well understood, all right?
Absolutely not.
So, yeah, I do not know. I have no opinion, but I am certainly interested in thinking about it.
I don't either. Just wondering.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting movie called Horse Girl about a woman who may or may not be being abducted by aliens, and she's not sure if it's in her head or if it's actually happening. It reminds me of that too. You should watch that.
Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating.
It's so good, dude.
Okay. Oh yeah, I will check it out. Okay, so staying with theosophy for a second, Mahatma K.H. in a letter to A.O. Hume wrote this about thought forms. Okay, so he says, every thought of man upon being evolved passes into the inner world and becomes an active entity by associating itself, coalescing, we might term it, with an elemental, that is to say, with one of the semi-intelligent forces of the kingdoms. It survives as an active intelligence, a creature of the mind's begetting, for a longer or shorter period, proportionate with the original intensity of the cerebral action which generated it. Thus, a good thought is perpetuated as an active, beneficent power, an evil one as a maleficent demon, and so man is continually peopling his current space in a world of his own, crowded with the offspring of his fancies, desires, impulses, and passions, a current which reacts upon any sensitive and or nervous organization which comes in contact with it in proportion to its dynamic intensity. That was hard to read. Anyway, interesting shit though, right?
Yeah, that sounded really cool.
Yeah, it's a super interesting way of looking at I don't know, the power of positive thinking. Like, you're literally, like, filling the room with, like, happy, helpful, like, I guess, like, maybe little proto-servitors or something like that. I don't know, very interesting.
Could that be, like, maybe, like, angels? Like, maybe take the form of angels?
I mean, sure. I don't know. What's an angel?
Well, I just mean, like, maybe it would look like an angel if you're seeing it. Like, I'm wondering how these things manifest. Like, I think there is a semantical kind of, as someone not kind of fluent in the language of the birds or the language of occult stuff, like, it sounds kind of, like, to take it literally, it sounds just, like, nuts. But I know that that's why they use metaphor and stuff, so people can't really understand what they're saying. Like,
Well, I'm not trying to, like,
well, I know that
hide
you,
any- No, for sure. No, this is good. This is why you're here.
yeah.
Okay, so, like, yeah, I mean, I think that they can take a lot of different forms. There's a story about, I forget who it was, I think it might have been Annie Besant, the woman that wrote the book, about, like some, like, thought form of hers that was, like a little monk guy or something, and, like, at first he was, like, all chill, and, like, she would, like, think about it, and then she started, like, seeing him, and then he started becoming, like, a dick, and
Whoa.
they had to, like, take measures or whatever. I don't remember exactly how the story goes, but yeah, there's certainly, like, stories of people, like, seeing these things. Typically, like, when they're things that you're making yourself, though, is what I was saying, is that, like, I wouldn't try to, like, achieve that, because it's, like, pointless sort of is what Carol was saying, and I think I sort of agree. Like, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably, like, gonna be something you're gonna have to obsess over, and then it's just gonna be really confusing and maybe damaging.
Yeah, or just like a waste of energy. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
that's. I think that would be more what I would say, is that it just, like, it seems like a waste of time and energy. It's like, why? I mean, I don't know.
Okay, I got you.
All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Okay, so as a side note, there is a link to that book, Thoughtforms, in the show description in case you want to check it out. I didn't, like, read it all the way through, but it looks like there's some pretty interesting shit in there from what I can tell. It was written in 1905, so take that into account too. Some of the thought forms, like, they're, like, quote-unquote thought forms, are actually, like, images with associated colors and meanings. It sort of reminds me of the project that I've been working on lately, my sigil and art project, The Mimetic Disease. I use color and texture as well as sigils and words in, like, this kind of mashup technique. I think that by Besant and Leadbeater's definition, one could consider the sigils that I'm making there to each be a thought form, since they're, like, super invested. I hadn't really considered it from this perspective before I began writing this episode, but it actually does fit pretty well. Those things, like, are way more alive than some of the sigils that I've made in the past using, like, a more basic technique. Not to say that there's anything wrong with basic technique. I still use it all the time, obviously, but
Why do you think they're more alive? Because you've invested more in it? With the colors and with the...
yeah, well, in the way that I make them, like, it usually involves, like, a pretty intense, like, emotional state too. It's like when you get into, like, such a strong emotional state that you can, like, access gnosis through it. If anybody's curious about it, you can go ahead and read the protocol. I have a link to it in the show description, and there's also a link to it on the bio for the Instagram account, The Mimetic Disease. So yeah, check it out.
Sweet.
So yeah, I still use the basic technique, as I was saying. It just depends on what I'm trying to do and what I want to accomplish. As a side note, the cover art for this episode is from that book, Thoughtforms. It's one of these thought forms, and it is the thought form which is, quote, the intention to know, which is pretty fucking dope, I thought. Like, this one hit pretty well for me. It reminds me of snakes, and the serpent has usually been associated with wisdom, among other things. But yeah, maybe that's why it is the way that it is. I don't know. Pretty cool, though.
Now, did you make that, or did somebody else?
Oh no, this is from the book Thoughtforms. This is one of their thought forms.
Oh, I got you.
And the thought form is, quote, the intention to know.
And they've manifested it as the piece of artwork there? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting shit. I don't know. Like, when you look at it, I do sort of get that from it in a way. But maybe that's because I'm into occulty shit and I know what serpents... I don't know, right? Like,
well, there's the whole kind of, like, the serpent eating its tail kind of aspect to it. The,
oh gods, yeah. There's who is it? It's not one
never
or the
ending,
other,
right?
Yeah, and Ouroboros.
yeah. The more you learn, the more you want to know.
And yeah, did we create the thought form, or I mean, is it the symbology that makes it that, or is it something before the symbology? Is that make, I don't know. Whatever. Think about this later.
That was deep. Yeah, shit.
I'm gonna get myself lost here. Okay.
Sorry. I think I keep throwing you off.
No, you're totally fine, man. Interesting shit. Okay, so I just wanted to review sigils real quick. In case I lost anybody with like all this talk of sigils and stuff. Hopefully you will remember from the first episode, if you heard it, that sigils are symbolic representations of a desired outcome or thing. But yeah, I think a desired outcome is a pretty good way to say. I think Gordon White calls them like wish granting squiggles or some shit. Pretty funny. But yeah, okay, so yeah, that's like a super basic definition, and there's like basically infinite ways of making and using sigils. But I wanted to clarify something that I said in the first episode about statements of intent. Like, I do think it's good that they be specific, meaning that you should like sigilize for what you want, not how you want to get it. For example, like sigilize for the thing that you want to buy, not the money to buy it, since there's like way more possible ways to get the thing than just buying it with money, right? Like maybe somebody will give it to you as a present or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
So yeah, you're giving yourself more probabilities that way. Yeah, okay, there's actually a pretty funny story in Condensed Chaos where Phil Hine talks about this a little bit too. Like, I think he said he was like hoping to like get laid or something, and so he sigilized for like, I want to have like a really great time or some shit like that. And like, I guess the next day his buddy gave him a bunch of video games. And he's like, oh man, I should have sigilized for the thing that I was actually wanting, because he did have a great time playing the video games, he said. But like, in Visual Magic, Jan Fries talks about sigils as being like, he uses it's kind of like metaphor as like a seed that you plant in the soil of your like subconscious, or like I think he calls it your deep mind. So I think that's a kind of a cool way to think about it too. That book is pretty dope. And once you figured out like a method that works for you, like for real, don't overthink this shit. Like I feel like that's one thing that seems to trip people up a lot, is just like overthinking, like, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Like, I don't know, man. It's cool. Like, just do it. Just try it out and see how it happens. Like, don't freak out about if you're doing it right. Just try it. I don't know. That's my opinion. And the other thing too is like not lusting for results. Did we talk about this?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, it's just important to, once it's done, like treat it like it's already happened sort of in your mind. Like act as though it's like for real. Like, it's like having confidence in the outcome helps manifest that outcome.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Hell yeah.
I did try sigil, and I had a very interesting experience with it.
Oh, really? Do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm too embarrassed to say exactly what it was, but
that's fine. Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
The next day, like literally like the next morning, I woke up and was watching one of my favored entertainers on Twitch, and I heard a song playing from like the 80s, and it had the exact same lyrics that the sigil was. So that was weird. Just like going to bed and doing it, and then waking up and then hearing it like on Twitch. Like, yeah.
Okay, so that's a synchronicity, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Did you write that shit down in your magical journal?
I haven't got that far yet.
No, you right? Jesus.
I know.
I'm gonna jump through the internet and strangle you.
I know. Yeah, I'm a really bad procrastinator, but I will say that was interesting. And the journal that I wrote the sigil in, I hadn't removed it from it, and I was gonna put my headphones into my computer, and I had to haul them up from the nether realm of the floor.
Jesus. Wait, sorry.
I had to pick them off the floor. And
the nether realm of the floor? I don't know how you're living, bro.
Oh, you don't want to know, dude. You don't want to know. It's like an abyss in here. And it swallows you. Anyways, I picked them up, and they got caught on the notebook, which was also on the floor. And the notebook was hauled into my lap. It was odd.
That's cool, though. Maybe it was reminding you that you should be fucking writing it.
Maybe, yeah. And this all happened like the next morning, like immediately. So it was
Yeah, dude.
interesting.
There's something to it, right? Like,
Sure.
okay, yeah, I mean, just even if it starts out weird and small, but like, yes, I would consider continuing on that path if you're interested in it.
Yankee, Romeo.
All right, servitors. A common practice for a lot of chaos magicians is to have or make servitors. You've heard about these things before in another context, right?
Warhammer 40K, baby. Yeah.
I actually have a quote here. So according to Warhammer Fandom Wiki, a servitor is the catch-all term applied to a wide class of mindless cybernetic drones created from a fusion of human flesh and robotic technology that are used to carry out simple manual tasks across the Imperium of Man. While many of these programmable cybernetic slaves are genetically engineered, vat-grown subhuman clones or replicae created by the Adeptus Mechanicus from human genomes who have had their bionic implants installed after birth, others were once truly human. These servitors were usually criminals who fell afoul of imperial law, particularly a person who has offended or damaged the Adeptus Mechanicus in some fashion. So I gotta check this fucking game out. It sounds cool.
Dude, I've been telling you about this shit for like a year now. How
I know.
the lure is. I've never played the game. The lure is so cool, though.
It does sound fucking sweet. The
Yeah.
game looks hella intense. I don't know if I have time right now.
Well, like the tabletop game?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
I'm
could
seeing
spend all the
people
money in the
play it.
world on it.
Yeah, it's the hobby store I go to. I see people playing it all the
does
time.
look
and, like,
fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
you have
dude.
to like build your own armies, like, and like you need the figures for them, and then you got to
It's-
paint them. So like you're super invested in it.
It's like, yes, it's it's quite intense. It's sort of the ceremonial magic version of being a nerd.
Yeah, but I mean, the creators were clearly obsessed with Chaos Magick.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Well, yeah, maybe I'll check it out.
You should at least check out the lure. I can give you some YouTube channels to look at. You can edit this out too, but yeah.
We'll just talk about Warhammer for like 20 minutes. All right, cool. So in the context of Chaos Magick, servitors are a type of thought form created by a practitioner for a specific purpose or function, as opposed to all the other shit I just said. For example, I might make a servitor to help me with a specific task or project, or to help me address something I would like to change, or whatever. This can be thought of in terms of evocation, which means calling upon or summoning a spirit, thought form, or demon, or entity, or agent of some kind. Here's a fun side note. Evocation is from the Latin word evocatio, which was a calling forth or summoning away of a city's tutelary deity, which was like the city god, basically. So the ritual was conducted in a military setting, either as a threat during a siege or as a result of surrender, and aimed at diverting the god's favor from the opposing city to the Roman side, and customarily with like a promise of a better endowed cult and a more lavish temple.
Interesting.
Evocatio was thus a kind of ritual dodge to mitigate looting of sacred objects or images from shrines that would otherwise be sacrilegious or impious. And that is the opinion of Nicholas Purcell, who wrote On the Sacking of Corinth and Carthage essay.
Oh, that is so good, dude. The
I think
Romans
it's
would
good.
come up with some kind of like process to like legalize or sanctify the looting of the city.
Oh yeah, I mean they were
It's
very
so
pragmatic. And if you want to hear more about the Romans, come check out that.
Check out
We
Ad
talk
Hoc
about
History.
those guys all the time because they are. Again, I sort of have a little bit of like a dark fascination with them. So.
Oh, I mean, they're a fascinating civilization.
Okay, so in Liber Null, Carroll notes that like any method of gnosis could work or should work for evocation, and he talks about some of the more like common traditions in there. All right, here's an example of like I'm going to try to give like a kind of a general example of like what this might look like in practice.
All right.
Do you have any questions before I start though?
We're still talking about servitors, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, so so making a servitor is like a type of evocation. That's why I was saying all that shit about evocatio.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a D&D. I know evocation from D&D.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, for sure. Like evocation is a type of
It's a school of magic. Yeah. It's like the explodey kind of magic.
Well, you're evoking like elemental forces with evocation.
Okay, yeah.
Is what you're doing.
Yeah, it makes sense now. My learning, of the cult is branching into my love of gaming.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover. I'm thinking that I'm probably going to do some stuff on that because I do love it. Anyway. Okay, so here's an example of what this might look like in practice. Like, let's say you wanted to learn how to cook, but you're having trouble because, I don't know, you tend to forget shit and burn things or whatever. You leave out steps in the recipe. Like, you could make a servitor to help you out with this. The first step would be to figure out exactly what you want the thing to do and write out a statement of intent. If you make this statement sort of general in terms of what the thing can do, you'll give it a little bit more leeway in terms of like finding ways to help. So instead of saying that you want it help the food not get burned, like you could instead say I want it to assist in making sure the food is cooked properly, because cooked properly is like the actual thing that you want, right? We talked about that a second ago. Yeah, so you actually might even have it help you find new and interesting recipes, or maybe assist in some other way. You could put all of that in there. A lot of people will put restrictions on the servitor too, stuff it's not allowed to do, like harming humans or whatever. I think that maybe thinking about this in terms of the information model is a good framework for this concept, because the idea that you're sort of programming something to carry out a specific task or function, it might be helpful. I've heard some people talk about servitors in terms of I don't know, living sigils, which is actually really not a bad way to think about them at all. I don't know.
That's kind of what it was reminding me of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you could really make the case, though, that all sigils, at least the ones that end up, manifesting or working, are alive. But, I feel like that might actually be a discussion for another day, because there's a lot of stuff we could, go into there, and it's super interesting.
So would they be servitors, then?
Well, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe. Are all sigils servitors in some way? I mean, I don't know,
If I wanted to do this, so instead of making a sigil, I would just write out my intent in a book or something?
Well, you could start there. This is what a lot of people will go on to make that into a sigil, though.
Okay.
So after you have the restrictions and all that shit together,
okay,
you go ahead and you can make it into a sigil. I like to make mine look kind of like little dudes or little animals and stuff when I make them. I'll try to remind myself to put some pictures online or something in case you guys want to check it out. There's a Instagram account for the show, Lux Occult Pod. I put them up there.
That would be very interesting to see those.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they're just little Google things, but yeah. But yeah. So we already talked about how some people will remove vowels and repeating letters from the statement and use the letters left over as a starting point for sigil design.
Right.
And yeah, this, by the way, is known as the Spare method of creating sigils, named for our dude, Austin Osmond Spare.
My man.
I know you were afraid I was going to read you more of his writing, but I'm not going to.
You've been studying too much of this occult stuff, dude. You're reading my mind. No,
I could sense your fear.
I'm just kidding.
All right, so some people find it easier to draw a sigil in picture form, or have it be more like a geometric design. I don't know, however you make your sigil. This is kind of you could think about it as sort of maybe a home base for the entity, or at least the portal through which you can start to give it life. This is sort of how I think about it, at least. The sigil is your connection to the ghost baby that you're making. It's your umbilical cord or whatever. It's generally understood that servitors and other thought forms feed on the attention that you pay to them. So if you need one of these things to go away, just stop paying attention to it. You can also program a death date or something like that into it when you make them as a condition. I've made servitors with another person once, and we drew the sigils onto origami paper and then folded that paper into a little origami balloon, and then in a ritual setting we inflated the balloon sort of a metaphor of breathing life into the thing.
Cool. Which
I think is a cool way to go. That seemed to work well for us. The servitors were programmed to die or dissolve or be resorbed. I don't know, depending on how you want to look at it. Some people say that once the servitor dies or is no longer active, its essence goes back to you. So other people seem to think that it just dissolves, and I don't know, y'all. I do not have the answer to that question. You can use some kind of physical anchor for a servitor too. A crystal is a classic kind of thing for binding entities too. And the idea is that if you need to like destroy the thing, you can like smash the crystal, maybe in this sense at least, if that's how you set it up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, so is this just going to be something that will help you kind of in the backgrounds, like remind you to, check the temperature of the food or not to forget about it, like that kind of thing?
Well, very much like sigils, like things will manifest in unforeseen ways. Like a lot of the reason behind the thinking of a lot of this shit is that like if you knew exactly how to do the thing that you wanted to get done, like you wouldn't need to use this shit, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a way to it, but you're having a hard time seeing it with your conscious mind, maybe in terms of the psychological model.
That's a good way of, for me, thinking of it.
Okay, cool. A side note on crystals, I just want to call this out here. They're easy to smash because most of them are like basically fancy glass from the standpoint of like mineralogy, at least. I know people are gonna get really mad at me for saying.
I'm already upset, dude.
I know.
I'm like thinking what I'm gonna write you from my alternate account that you don't know it's me.
I love crystals. Okay, like I have crystals. I'm just like calling it like I see it. Okay, glass is glass. Okay, even if it's fancy. I don't know though. Like, there are chemical differences between different types of crystal. They're mostly glass, but there are other things in there. Don't fucking come at me.
Well, it's just what, silica?
Most of them are, yeah,
Quartz?
silicon dioxide. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Or for like the most of what they are is that, but then there's like other, you would say like impurities or whatever. Yeah.
Then there's like the colors.
Okay, we can talk about mineralogy another time.
We have Dad on for that one.
God. That would be hilarious. All right.
So I do have a question though.
Sure.
So this is remind me of the golem, but is that similar? Only something that you want to manifest in reality, like a physical reality?
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the golem is you could totally think about that here. Even though it's not really a thought form in the story, right? It's like, I guess it's more of a homunculus or something, although it's not quite alive. It's more of like a magically, it's magical, it's magic, right?
It's inanimate objects that are like performing your will, I think, is the idea. Or it could be made of dirt. It could be made of
I think the story is that the golem was like formed out of clay, and then like a piece of paper with like one of the magic names of God was like written on a paper, and then they put it in the golem's mouth or something, and it brought it to, I don't know, there's a lot of different golem stories, I believe.
Okay, cool. That's like next level servitor shit.
I guess, I don't know, but yeah, no, the golem thing for sure is involved, so thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so in addition to a sigil for your servitor, you might want to give it a name. Imagine what you think it might look like. Basically, the more associations that you have for the thing, like the more kind of like real it will become to you, the more you can like visualize it and interact with it. And this is sort of part of the process of creating it. So it obviously, like, use caution with all this shit. I probably shouldn't have to fucking say that, but goes with that saying all the time. And take some time to like think about exactly like what you want it to do. Never hurts to plan carefully, and that helps with everything, right? So careful planning is always a good idea. You can like make them look however you want, right? They're your imaginary friend, as you said.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe an animal companion or like a Pokemon like creature.
Yeah, shit, I mean, go nuts. Some magicians say that you should use caution not to create something sentient that will like grow to resent you. I know that Archtrader Blue Fluke talks about this in the cartoon guide to Chaos Magick. I feel personally like as long as you approach the process, this is true of like anything, like with like respect, then you should be good. Yeah, just don't be a dick. Be respectful. Good general advice, right?
That is a good advice. I'm gonna write that down so I don't forget that one.
You should write it down. Okay, so once you have the sigil for your servitor, you can use one of the many ways of achieving gnosis to work with the sigil, visualizing the entity that you're like evoking. So this is done regularly. You could do it in the context of ritual. There's a lot of different ways to go about this. I like to do what makes sense for the thing that I'm trying to make. So, for example, I have one that I've used dance as a sort of like metaphor for the way that I want it to like do what it does. And so I use dance as a means of entering gnosis when I work with it. So
you are whirling yourself into some kind of state of gnosis?
Yeah, it's an excitatory gnosis. Like, I like to
Cool.
listen to really intense music and dance in the dark late at night.
It's perfectly healthy and normal. No, I'm just kidding.
There's not. It actually.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
My life is fucking amazing. So, I want to note here that these things are, like I said before, they're not typically visible at all. So trying to make them whatever, to me, that doesn't seem like the point. You could probably think of it sort of like an unseen servant spell in D&D, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we decide to go with what Mahatma K.H. wrote about Thoughtforms and that stuff that I read earlier from the Theosophical Society, so it sounds like we're sort of like doing on purpose what we just do by accident all the time if we believe what this person wrote about us peopling our rooms with all these entities. So that's kind of fun. I don't know, it gives an interesting new perspective to why positive thinking might be helpful, right? Like, you're making positive, I guess he does say that, like, if you're doing positive thinking, you're making helpful entities.
Now, I guess the reverse could be possible as well.
Yeah, he does say that too. Like, if you're thinking shitty things all the time, you're like surrounding yourself with, he calls them demons, I think.
Sure.
So, okay, I wanted to bring up this because it reminded me a lot of that thing that we just talked about, that Theosophical Society. And this is something that Carol talks about in Liber Null. Yeah, it's still in Liber Null. Okay, I will read to you about succubi and incubi.
Ooh. All
right. Succubi and incubi are pre-existing entities created by other people's pathological sexuality. Incubi traditionally seek sexual intercourse with living females and succubi with males, often in sleep. However, both forms are invariably male, though succubi make some sort of attempt to disguise themselves as females. Unfortunately, they are both predatory and stupid, with little power or motivation for anything other than sex. So that is very interesting.
That is. Why are they both male?
I'm not sure. I'm assuming that he might have had some personal experience with this shit and that led him to believe that. He doesn't explain why. Most occult authors don't typically explain why they say the things they say, which is fine. A lot of this shit, when you have these experiences, sometimes you understand something, but you don't understand why you understand it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It could just be something like that. I don't know. Good question though.
Hearing that reminded me of a couple experiences I had with the sleep paralysis.
Okay.
Where I woke up and I felt like there was, I guess it's the old hag.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a succubi?
Well, I think that
it wasn't sexual, but
okay, yeah. From what I see, it sounds like the succubi and incubi are primarily concerned with sex. It sounds like, so I would say that that's probably
something else.
Well, there's the hypnagogia, right? Like the state in between sleeping and wakefulness. I think that's when you're falling asleep. It's hypnagogia. Anyway, so that's these hag attacks, right?
Yeah.
Or there's it's kind of a common phenomenon. I don't know if it's understood why it happens or anything.
I believe it's been described as far as back as ancient Egypt, that people have been seeing this old hag on their chest when they wake up in this sleep paralysis state. And sometimes it's an animal. So I've had this twice. Once it was a really creepy looking old woman, your stereotypical D&D swamp hag or hag,
okay.
This cartoonishly ugly and villainous looking old woman. And the other time it was an animal. It was a dog. It was one of my friend's dogs. It was a dog I knew. And it was just, I could feel its paws and its claws pressing into me. And it wasn't scary like the hag, but it was just weird.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I mean, I know people say that they think that maybe part of the phenomena has to do with your brain makes it so you can't so you can't move in your sleep, so you're not acting out the actions. That's one of the things with sleepwalking and stuff. But so maybe that's part of, I don't know, man. It's fascinating shit though. We should do an episode on dreams.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. I would love to talk about dreams too. I'm a prolific dreamer.
Hosting India Ghost
Okay, so servitors are typically considered to be an externalized aspect of the practitioner, something that comes from you, like your formed thought, a thought that you formed into something, I guess is a way to think about it, right? Another way of looking at this process, though, is, I don't know, some people think about it differently, and there is a distinction here. I'm not sure whether it's a distinction without a difference, though. I really don't know. I honestly don't know. But I do want to mention that some people prefer to, if they want to have like a magic, maybe not servant in this case, but like working with an entity, they would prefer to like summon an entity rather than create one with a sigil. I don't know if there's a huge difference. Like, who knows if that's what's happening anyway? We don't know, right? I don't think we know, personally.
Well, I think there's a lot of implications there, though, right?
Yeah.
Creation versus, just using somebody else, right?
Well, so in this context, like, what you're actually doing is, like, when you're making your sigil, you're like, this is a request. Like, I would like an entity that has these qualities, that will do these things for me, that won't do these other things. Like, will you come and help me?
Okay.
Right? Like,
maybe there's some available ones just chilling out that are just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. So,
Yeah.
like, but
who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people prefer to think about it this way, or think that this is a better way of doing it if it's not the same, right? Like, I'm trying to it's hard to say, right? I feel like it's definitely something that we could go down rabbit holes exploring. But yeah, whatever the case may be, I would definitely, like, I don't know, prefer, like I said, to approach all this shit with like an attitude of like thankfulness rather than like bossy demands. So another thing that comes up in this stuff is like some of the demons from like the old grimoires. Like, some people might consider those to be servitors that have just been around for a really long time, and they've been thought about a lot, and they're very powerful now. So like from the Key of Solomon, like, these are servitors that people created a long time ago that you can still use or something. So interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I know that like bossy demands might be part of a lot of traditions or paradigms. Like, I am thinking about goetic shit here, but I find it to be sort of exhausting personally to like, I don't know. I've heard a lot of other people too who do a lot of like goetic work say that like being bossy is not necessary. Like,
what is goetic?
Like, it's a like a grimoire tradition of summoning entities.
I got you. It's very precise.
Yeah. Okay. It's more than that, but I'll leave it at that. But yeah, so it's not necessary. I don't think, like, just be fucking, like, be cool. Don't be I don't know. Conduct yourself how you see fit. Obviously. Do you have any questions?
No, just keep going.
Okay. So, all right, making these things isn't something that I do like all the time, but I definitely do have some of them around. There is one that lives in my Astral Temple, which we will talk about a little bit later.
Ooh.
I have a few for like basic shit. I actually recently created one through one sort of like evolved on its own organically recently, which I thought was kind of fun. Like, it was from one of those sigils that I was talking about earlier, like the mimetic disease sigils. Yeah, I know, I'd never had that happen before, where one just kind of like grew into a servitor. So yeah, there's something there. I mean, it's all very experimental. I'm trying to figure it out. I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on. I'm in the middle of the experiment. So interesting things, though.
Yeah.
Did I talk to you yet about keeping a dream journal? Speaking of dreams?
Not specifically dream journal, no.
Okay, so just as a side note, like, it's a super good thing to do. It's a good idea. You should try it, because you can learn like a lot of interesting shit from your dreams, and you might also be able to like get to the point where you can do lucid dreaming and like dream practice stuff, which we will talk about more another time. Pete Carroll, since we've been talking so much about him, let's see what he has to say about how you do that. And it's this. He says, the only method of gaining access to the dream plane is to keep a book and writing instrument next to the place of sleeping at all times. In this, record the details of all dreams as soon as possible after waking. So, yes. That is what I do. And it works pretty well. I'm not like a very prolific dreamer right now. I think that in order to like really do a dream practice properly, there's a few things that you have to like pay attention to, and one of those is like really good sleep hygiene. And I will say that I could probably get more sleep at night.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. If you just get into a routine and with your sleep, and yeah, my experience tends to agree with that.
Yeah, my dream practice was like really dope last year, and then I don't know, when everything happened, like my sleep schedule got so fucked up, and it just hasn't come back yet.
Oh yeah, with the fall,
with the fucking
the catastrophe,
the tower card, whatever. Let's take a fucking bibliomancy break.
Hell yeah.
Okay, are you ready to ask the Oracle a question?
Oh, let's see. Okay. I don't want it to be too personal or just too niche.
Well, you can ask a personal question in a vague way. The Oracle will know what you want.
Okay. All right. How about, will the current sandstorm I find myself in clear up and reveal a path out of this desert?
All right. Intense question, man. Go ahead and flip a coin.
Maybe that's too intense.
No, you've already asked it. It's already done. Right. Flip a coin.
Flip a coin? Okay.
Yeah.
I have my lucky coin right here.
Excellent.
All right. It's kind of jacked. Should I redo it?
Yeah. If it's jacked, redo it.
All right.
Although I don't know how
it's hard to jack a coin, but it was like up against the side. Like.
Okay. Fair
enough. Right. I got a tails.
All right. Fuck yeah. All right. Do you have a D12?
I do.
All right. Go ahead and roll that shit.
All right. 11.
All right. Fuck yeah. It's going to be from Chicago Poems by Carl Sandburg. Hang on 1 second while I grab it. Oh, Eris. Will Asher find a path out of the sandstorm desert that he finds himself in? And, William Morris, when I read your old chapter on the great arches and naves and little whimsical corners of the churches of northern France, brr, I'm glad you're a dead man, William Morris. I'm glad you're down in the damp and moldy old memory instead of a living man. I'm glad you're gone. You never lied to us, William Morris. You loved the shape of those stones piled and carved for you to dream over and wonder because workmen got joy out of life into them. Workmen in aprons singing while they hammered and praying and putting their songs and prayers into the walls and roofs and the bastions and cornerstones and gargoyles and their children and kisses of women and the wheat and roses of growing. I say, William Morris, I'm glad you're gone. I'm glad you're a dead man. Guns on the battle lines have pounded a year now between Brussels and Paris. So I hope that answers your question.
Holy shit, that was dark, dude. Oh my god. That's about World War One?
I'm actually not sure. I
don't even know who William Morris is, so
let's find out. It looks like he was a British textile designer and a poet, novelist, translator, and socialist activist associated with the British arts and craft movement. I don't know if this was the person that Sandburg was writing about, but I'm guessing it might be. I don't know. There you have it.
This heavy shit there. Interesting, though.
Cool. So, did you get your...
I have to think about that. The Oracle didn't exactly speak in clear terms like usual, so...
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about, like, work and building and shit like that. So, like, what I'm getting out of that was that, like, possibly, like, it might be, like, an effort, like a monument, like some kind of a monumental task. It sounded like they were making some kind of, like, an edifice, right? Like, something that you'll have to build stone by stone.
Well, that's definitely a part of it. But there's also, like, he was the one happy about that or advocating that, and now this guy's glad he's dead for some reason. I don't know. There's more to it.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot going on there, and I'm not quite sure, but we can figure it out. We do a history podcast.
Yeah, and then the guns between Belgium and Paris has to be World War One, right?
I mean, sure.
It has to be.
Okay.
It just has to be.
It has to be. I mean...
Well, Belgium didn't exist. The only other war it would have been was Napoleon, but Belgium didn't exist until after that. So it's got to be World War One.
Okay. I'm sure. I guess it is. I mean...
Sounds like he's, like, happy that this old order that this guy really liked is being destroyed. Like...
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, hell yeah.
Romeo.
All right. So, the next thing on the thought form list is egregores. So, egregore is a term that is getting used more and more these days, it seems like. Have you heard this term before?
I have. I'm not exactly sure what that means, though. It's
Egregore refers to a type of thought form that is created by numerous people who are part of a group or set of some kind. I think it might be fair to say that when colleges talk about like cultivating school spirit, they're referring to like the egregore or the spirit of their community. The Theosophical Society also talked about these things. So here's a definition from their wiki. An egregore is a group thought form. It can be created either intentionally or unintentionally and becomes an autonomous entity with the power to influence. A group with a common purpose, like a family, a club, a political party, a church, or a country, can create an egregore for better or worse, depending on the type of thought that created it. There's a pretty famous example of this, the story called The Magical Battle of Britain, where this occultist, Dion Fortune, had this idea that the Nazis had this like egregore or like kind of group mind, and that it could be fought by fostering the group mind in Britain. So this was done through like all these like meditations and shit like that. It's a super fucking interesting story. So that is one example of that. I know my friend Dave talks about this on his podcast. I actually guested on an episode there, so check out Unearthing Paranormalcy. And actually there's another episode about this on a podcast called Occult Confessions, which is really good. And I'm looking forward to talking to Dr. Thompson, who is one of the hosts of that. And so that's gonna be dope. Anyway, back to it. And do you have any questions so far?
I'm thinking about like kind of like groupthink and maybe some of the side effects of a lot of people thinking the same things. Does that kind of create an egregore?
Yeah, I think that that's sort of the idea of it. I've heard people talk about like, I don't know, brands being an egregore. Yeah, for sure. So this is, I mean, I think one of the reasons that there's a lot of talk about this right now is that there's a lot of different versions of it and a lot of different ways it can kind of be thought about or contextualized or that it can manifest. But yeah, in general, that's what an egregore is. Okay, so Godforms. So, I mean, this is kind of like, you could think about it as like a really, really powerful egregore, right? Like one that's like super old or super like, I guess just really maybe powerful or stable, maybe would be another word for it. Like with a lot of different people, you know, putting thought into it. Okay, so the word God form for me has always called to mind a group called the DKMU, and their God forms, the most well-known of which is Ellis, which is connected with the linking sigil. Have you heard about this before?
I have not.
Okay, so the linking sigil was created for the purpose of forming like nodes in a network, which practitioners could then connect to. So after a while, people were working with this sigil. They were like building this network. They began to encounter this like kind of emergent sentience within that network that was related to the sigil and stuff. It's the God form known as Ellis, Ellis, whereas the linking sigil is LS, the letters LS. I'm going to read a little bit about this from a document called the DKMU Godforms, which is an excerpt from Liber Sigillum, written by Frater ES and the OOA in collaboration with the DKMU. So you can find a link to a PDF of this thing if you want to check it out, which I recommend. It's pretty it's cool shit. I don't know. This, again, like I said, this is the kind of stuff that like got me all stoked on this stuff when I first heard about it. I was like, oh my god. I'm going to read you a little bit about Ellis. The Red Queen approaches. As a quick and confident madness, carefully diligent and obscured, she spins the webs of discord between the cracks of an otherwise dull and unassuming monolith, the consensual reality. She appears to the uninitiated as a brief doorway of spray paint or chalk upon the street walls and corridors, a series of strange breadcrumbs and runic white rabbits, which chart the way towards an unspeakable and alien wonderland. Of this location beyond the veil, she is both bridge and tunnel, psychic lighthouse of playful spontaneity as well as mad queen upon the border, the dweller on the threshold. Beyond her, all things collapse and tumble into aggregates of probability. The Red Queen tends to and manipulates those portions of the deepening web, and for those she favors, she may engineer stark coincidences and serendipitous events, though usually not without gaining something in return, even if it's not but her own delight in the conjuration of some healthy mischief.
That sounded cool.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, I think a lot of people make the association between Elis and like Eris, the goddess of chaos. Like there's some association I think that's talked about in Liber Sigillum anyway. So yeah, interesting shit, dude. Like there's a lot of stuff in that text about how to like work with their god forms. I think it's worth checking out. Like we're going to be talking more about like working with gods or god forms or whatever like in the future. But yeah, I would like to note that there is a practice within Hermetics known as the assumption of the god form. So you might have heard this word in that context too. Some of the techniques described seem like a really good way of invoking a deity or bringing that energy represented by a deity like into you, which is one of the reasons that I bring it up. So a lot of Western modern occultism has like some connections with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which we could say a lot of mean things and a lot of nice things about, I guess. I'll just like leave it at that since it's a hugely long story. But here's a little bit from an article like written by Mark Stavish. Actually, you know what? This is boring. I'm not going to read it, but there is a link to it. He goes into like talking about like how do you assume the god form. It's basically like he says the fundamental idea behind assumption of the god form is that within each of us are power that lie in potential for awakening, and that by identifying ourselves with those idealized expressions of those powers from ancient times in the form of gods, we can awaken through resonance similar powers and wisdom within our own psyche. So that's a lot of evocation work has to do with like that kind of stuff. Any thoughts?
Interesting. Is this kind of like what the pagans did with their idols? Like if enough people were worshiping them, it made them real, kind of thing?
I mean, I think that you could sort of like make the case that that's the case of any deity, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Monotheist, pagan, and I mean, I don't know. Controversial opinion, I know, but like if no followers are left, does the god still exist?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to ask. Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I don't think it would, right? Like,
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the question of like whether we created the gods or the gods created us, like,
who knows? Yeah.
So okay, so the DKMU god forms, like a lot of people will say, like, well, this shows that we created the gods. Like, this is what they did. Like, they made these god forms, like, as part of their work. And they seem to like express in a certain pattern too. But like what they found is that they seem to have some kind of like a maybe not pattern, but like formula, like that it followed. Like first you would get this thing and then you would get this thing and then you would get this thing emerging. And it like they sort of had the feeling that there was like a lot of tie-in with other traditions and stuff there, that like you're seeing this like organic process of like emergence happening in all these different places. So you are sort of creating them, but then it still asks a lot of questions of like, well, are you really? Like, I don't fucking know. So
that's interesting topic though.
Another Ouroboros.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I tend to like, I don't know, actually. I tend to oscillate between a variety of different opinions on the topic. So
my gut would be that it is something that I'm not even sure that gods exist, right? So if they do exist, this idea of a god form that they exist because people believe in them, that is more palatable to understanding it for me, I think. So it kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, think about it however you want. I don't think, right?
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts or anything about like god forms or anything like that, or?
No.
Okay.
I mean, lots, but we can move on.
Okay. Cool. Everything is making sense so far, though. Like a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right.
Yeah, there's interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, no, all kinds. I know this is like there's a lot in this episode. I just wanted to like get these topics introduced so that shit would make sense down the line here.
Oh yeah.
Okay, bet.
All right, so the next thing on the list is Hypersigils. So I'm going to paraphrase something that Aidan Wachter says in his new book, Weaving Fate. All right, he says this: metaphor is to a degree a map of the evolving real. Magic, metaphorical causes like ritual, spellwork, and enchantment produce real-world effects. So that's kind of dense. It's dense.
I'm trying to parse it out.
Yeah, he's basically saying that like what you do when you do magic, you're sort of like doing these like little metaphors that play out in the real world.
Okay.
which is very central to this idea of like what a hypersigil is. So the dude that came up with this term, Grant Morrison, he made a comic book series called The Invisibles. And this is like the most famous example of a hypersigil because I think this is like where the term was coined. There is a documentary called Talking with Gods that I would recommend. It explores this. It's on YouTube. It's pretty interesting, and Grant Morrison is hella sexy in it, so I'm just saying.
Got a thing for bald men.
Perhaps. It's available on YouTube, and sorry, I already said that. Got me thinking about bald men, and I'm all of Twitter. The Invisibles like ran from 94 to 2000, and I'm sort of embarrassed to say that I actually haven't read it. It's on the list. I know I should read it.
That's a pretty big commitment, though, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, but I mean, they're also like comic books. I'm sure I could.
That's true. Yeah,
ingest them pretty quickly. They look pretty rad anyway.
Now, did he do The Watchmen? Is that also him?
That's Alan Moore.
Oh, that's his arch rival.
I believe so.
My bad.
I think so. I could be wrong. This is not the kind of nerd that I am. So I don't know.
Okay, yeah. I mean, obviously,
that's me about science.
We're doing our best here with comic books.
So I know it's it's supposedly really good from what people say. Although there are some aspects of it which I guess haven't like aged very well or are like super cringy. But from what I understand, there's like the underlying message of the series is like really cool and positive. Just a little side note. I know I mentioned Gordon White earlier. He's got a podcast called Rune Soup. And he has a recent episode where he talks about this comic series, and he makes a really fucking good point in it that I'm going to reiterate here about like maybe we shouldn't be trying to uphold art to like corporate standards of like not offending people. Like,
how dare you?
I don't know. That's not exactly how he said it. Like, obviously, like we don't want to like we don't want things to be like intentionally hurtful. But if I don't know, man. I feel like there's a lot of fucking book burning going on around here lately, and I don't care. I don't care how fucking angry a book makes you. Maybe we shouldn't fucking burn our books. I'm sorry, just saying.
It's a weird instinct that's like. I get it though. I get it,
but it seems like a bad idea. Is all I'm saying.
Well, anyway. I mean, if you're gonna go, rally up a crowd for a book burning, I don't think you're really thinking clearly, right?
Yeah, man. Well. Again, I don't think we should be burning our books. Just saying.
Controversial opinion.
No, surprisingly enough, that is actually a controversial opinion right now, is to say, like, maybe we shouldn't burn these books no matter how angry the author makes us. Like, I don't know, maybe don't buy them if you don't want to give the author money.
Yeah.
Maybe don't buy them so that you can burn them. Like, so part of me fucking thinks that and that's
at least recycle them or something. Shit.
No, or I don't know, man. Just don't support that person with your money. Like we don't have to burn the books. Like
yeah, oh, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, that's my controversial.
You're to the choir, so
fucking controversial opinion about how we shouldn't be burning books. Jesus. All right. In the Disinfo Book of Lies, Morrison writes this. The hypersigil or supersigil develops the sigil concept beyond the static image and incorporates elements such as characterization, drama, and plot. The hypersigil is extended through the fourth dimension. My own comic series, The Invisibles, was a 6-year-long sigil in the form of an occult adventure story which consumed and recreated my life during the period of its composition and execution. The hypersigil is an immensely powerful and sometimes dangerous method for actually altering reality in accordance with intent. Results can be remarkably strong and shocking. So the story here is that there is a character in this series that like apparently was like he sort of like wrote himself into it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, as a side note, some people say that all of the characters are like reflections of Morrison, and I don't know, like that sounds like a notion that might lead us down some interesting rabbit holes regarding like whether or not it's necessarily always the case with art. Like, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms right there.
Yeah, but anyway, Morrison like basically uses the story as a way to like manifest things in his own life. this story becomes a sort of like miniature model for his reality that he's manipulating, and it's reflecting in his own life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's very dope. There was like a character in the story called King Mob that, this was what I was saying, that like kind of like wrote himself into it, and like, this character ends up being tortured and injured in a very specific way, and then Morrison ends up getting like this really weird, like, I think it was like an infection or something, like in the same place that the character got injured or whatever. Like,
Jesus.
He said that you notice after that, like, nothing bad seems to happen to this character. So yeah, I mean, obviously not without its risk, right? Like,
yeah, I do remember he got really sick or injured and had to go to the hospital.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating. That doc is really good. I would definitely recommend it. Clint Finley from the Technoccult blog has a fascinating post about how the concept of hypersigils might be extended to like digital media, and how things like MMORPGs might be used as like a means of experimentation.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I thought you might like that. Like, so this is like cool shit, and if it's of interest, I suggest you read that post. It's linked in there. So far, so good. Do you have any questions?
Well, not a question, but maybe just a comment. And I don't know if this is exactly right, but I think Shakespeare's The Tempest is it might be kind of like that. I think it might be more about his life's past. He has all these different characters to kind of like symbolize aspects of his past that have been, the whole story is about a shipwreck and people having to work things out and stuff. But so that just kind of reminded me of that, of Shakespeare actually.
So like, okay, so these people are working out these things and after this shipwreck, and it's like, but these are all aspects of himself. So he's like going back and like changing the way he's thinking about his past.
I actually don't remember the play well enough offhand, but I know it is like kind of an internal story, a story about himself that has been given form with characters and a narrative. And
okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call that a hypersigil, since he's not using it to cause manifestations. Or maybe he is. I don't really know what he was
I don't
doing,
remember the end,
Or if it was a he or who wrote it, right? Like, we're not quite sure. So.
Shakespeare, very mysterious character.
But yeah, no, I would say that if it was something that was done with the intention of creating changes in the outside world that were reflected in the work of art, I would say that was a hypersigil. But I don't know enough about literature to say if that's the case with The Tempest. So
yeah, fair enough. But so that's pretty common in artwork, though.
I don't know if it is. I mean,
like revolutionary propaganda or just propaganda in general, right?
In order for it to be considered a hypersigil, it would need to have like some kind of narrative aspect. Typically, a lot of people say that it's explainable because reality seems to kind of function as a type of story, is maybe like one way that you could contextualize that. So in a hypersigil, you're creating a work of art and you're telling a story, and that story is what you want to have happen in some way. There's like some reflection of that you want to manifest in the outside world. Yeah, so like when Morrison like would write things that would happen to that character after he like, I guess after that happened, and he like, he's like, I wanted to travel to a certain place, and I did, like, after the character did it or whatever, right? So, like, I think in some ways you could think about it as just a means of, like, letting yourself explore these different possibilities, like, these different paths to, like, where you want to get to go. So, this brings me to the book Weaving Fate, which I mentioned a second ago, by Aidan Wachter. The author discusses a hypersignal technique in there called the Black Book. It seems like a really safe and like controlled way to do this work, should you like wish to try it out. So I would definitely recommend that you like start there. I would say like if you want to do a hypersigil, I would check out Aidan Wachter's Weaving Fate. It definitely seems pretty legit. There's also like, it's kind of paired with a few other tech things that I really like a lot. There's like a pathworking method, and there's also some like ego magic tech stuff, or like healing work, I think is how you would say it. Like I said, it's a freaking dope book. You should read it. I actually know for a fact that some of what he talks about it works, because it's like super similar to shit that I've been doing in my own practice. So that's always fun when there's crossover and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a reason I'm always harping on about journaling. I'll just say that. So the book just came out, and like when I read it, I was like, fuck yeah. I'm going to stop talking about it right now. Like, there's an interview that's going to be coming out pretty soon, which I'm really excited to share with y'all, where I talked to Douglas Batchelor from the What Magic Is This podcast, and he and I like nerd out hardcore over this guy's work. So do you have any thoughts about hypersigils or anything like that?
You know, I'm thinking of like D&D. Like, what? I wonder if you could do it that way. Like, could you make your D&D character like your hypersigil? And like,
yeah, dude, 100%. Although you would probably want to make sure that everybody in the game was on board and that this was going to be like a controlled experiment. I would be curious to hear if anybody's done this before. I suspect that people might have, but like
that'd be really interesting. Yeah,
I've always wanted to try it. Like,
that'd be a cool, like, just kind of fiction story. Like the DM and this player are having this epic game where like the DM's throwing this stuff at him and, you know, or her or whatever, and they're overcoming it, and like in their real life they're overcoming those things as well.
Yeah.
And then there's like this weird dynamic between the DM that's like this godlike character that could be cool.
Yeah, no, I would say that in that case that would almost be more like ego magic, but like if you got the DM on board and like everybody like was, I don't even know, you might not be able to do it with a DM actually, because everybody would want to be controlling the story, right? Like that's part of the hypersigil, is like you're changing it with your intent, right? Like,
well, you're in control, right?
Yeah, you're in control of the process. That's you're the magician.
Right,
You're the god of this little world, right? Like,
I just mean from like a fictional story aspect. That would make a good story, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure, man, for sure. Yeah, no, dude, I think D&D could. There's definitely some. I think there's definitely something there for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, speaking of D&D, like I said, like there's a lot of things that you can use to build your skills as a magician, like through playing like tabletop role-playing games, like things that require like a lot of like visualization and shit like that. I think can be really helpful. So yeah, I mean, and actually like magic, I mean, I don't know, all magic sort of involves the imagination, right? Like I would say is where it all kind of starts, right?
Absolutely, right?
I mean, all the whole process of creation does start from the imagination anyway, so
imagination is more powerful than knowledge. That's an Einstein quote.
Imagination is more powerful than knowledge. Yes, that is true.
According to Einstein.
According to Einstein.
Romeo.
Okay, the last thing is the Astral Temple.
Yeah.
Alright, so the Astral Temple. I'm going to read just a little bit from Condensed Chaos about this, because it's a good book, and you should check it out. Alright, Hines says this about the Astral Temple. It is where you go, using your imagination, to perform acts of magic. Traditional descriptions of astral temples make much use of quasi-Masonic and Hermetic symbolism, but there's no reason that you can't develop your own temple using your own symbolism and background ideals, which you feel are more appropriate, such as a cyberspace zone, space station, or skyscraper. So the Astral Temple can be used for all works of magic that you would do normally on the physical, and as a starting point for exploration of inner worlds and landscapes.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Like, this is something that you're going to want to start, you know, developing through meditation practice and stuff. It's something like, I was actually, when I was reading that Sandberg poem earlier, I was kind of thinking about an astral temple almost in some weird way. Like all of this thought and effort and like stuff like building this kind of edifice. I mean, here it exists in the astral realm, or in the imaginal realm, I guess you could say. Although there's some hair-splitting distinctions that people do sometimes make about that, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Well, tell me more about what an astral temple is.
Okay, so it's basically like when I'm doing magic, I'm here, but I'm also like in my astral temple. Like it's like it surrounds me like in my imagination, if that makes sense.
Yeah, your happy place kind of.
Yeah, sometimes people talk about it as being a happy place for people that do a lot of like astral work. I've also heard it referred to an astral temple referred to as like a double of the temple where you are in, only it exists on the astral plane, and you can like retreat back there if you get into trouble or something like that. It's also a place where you can go again in meditation. I've heard a lot of different people use these things for different things, and it's really interesting. I'm hoping to get a few like short interviews together with people talking about how they use their astral temple and what it's like for them, because it is really personalized, and I think it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
So if you have an astral temple that you would like to share anything with me about, I would love to hear from you. Please email me at luxoccultpod@gmail.com, or you can hit me up on Instagram or Facebook.
So I do have a quick question now. Like, I think I have a working understanding of this, but I've never heard it defined. But like, what does this astral plane even mean? That's just kind of like a platonic kind of idea, like realm of the mind kind of place.
I think that is a good working definition to go on with.
Okay.
There is some intricacies and of course many different opinions about this, but for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's something that I can work with. That, yeah. So it's a place that exists, but it exists in another plane, another area. If it's inside you or whatever, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, do unicorns exist? I don't know.
Well, archaeology would say we should have found some of them. Or...
I mean, that they exist.
Oh, they do exist, yeah. I see what you mean, yeah. They do exist, yes.
Semantics, obviously, but still.
Yeah, you got me with semantics, yes.
Oh yeah, I was going to tell you about the servitor that lives in my astral temple. Yeah, so like sometimes I want an assistant, and that is what that servitor is there for. That's all they do is they kick it in the astral temple and assist me with the work that I do there.
That sounds cool. Does the servitor have a form in your mind?
It does, yeah. Like everything else there, it's imaginary. I don't know, I've heard a lot of people talk about like their astral temples being like full of all these like people and shit. There's like animals there for me a lot of times. I don't find a lot of, I don't know, I think I might just be really antisocial. I always encounter like animals and stuff, but I rarely encounter like humanoids, or maybe that's just how these things appear to me because that's how I want them to appear or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's animals that kick it there, like a lot of felines and shit.
Nope.
Yeah, but the humanoid is my servitor, that's kind of interesting. I never really considered that before, but yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah. How can I go about making an astral temple?
Well, I would definitely begin with meditating. I have heard some people recommend that you like conduct certain like types of meditations, but I don't think that's necessary. I am of the opinion that most people probably already have one of these things and they don't like kind of realize it. I always kind of had something like this. Like, I'm not going to talk about mine right now, but I might talk about it in the future. It's kind of personal, but like, yeah. And actually, funnily enough, like there was a time a little while back when my practice kind of lapsed for a while, and I just sort of like, yeah, I don't know. There's always ebb and flow to this shit, and like what started to happen was that I started to like see the temple all the time. Like I had closed my eyes and I would just like be there, and like I hadn't thought about it in so long, and it was just like it fucking like called me back to it. It's crazy. Like,
that's dope, dude. Now, is this so when I'm thinking of this, I'm kind of imagining kind of using the same process I would use if I was going to make a piece of fantasy artwork. Like, is that how this is supposed to work? Or is this supposed to be something that's just supposed to come to you without you constructing it like that?
I think that it's probably really depends on the person. I think that, yeah, if there's like an aesthetic that you really like, yeah, build yourself a fucking astral temple of that. I used to work with this other person, and like we were making an astral temple together and shit, and like we decided to go for like a classic kind of like tower metaphor, right? Like wizards and towers, right? Like,
that was what I was thinking as well.
Yeah, and we made it. It was actually pretty dope, and I put a lot of work into it, and I'm disappointed that we didn't get to share it with the world, that I cannot work with that person anymore. So that is why it is not out there, and that is okay. But yeah, it just I think, to be honest, like for people that are again, to tie in like D&D again, or any tabletop Pathfinder or writing or anything, like this process of like closing your eyes, or you can do it with your eyes open too, but imagining this fantasy space and filling it in with whatever you want, like I think
it's kind of powerful, right?
Very powerful. It's it's very, very powerful. So yeah, start a dream journal, start making your astral temple. You can think about making servitors and hypersigils and all that shit like down the line if you're new, but like I would definitely do meditation. I would specifically recommend trying the meditations in Liber MMM. It's the first part of Liber Null and Psychonaut. They will help you with all of this stuff. But there's other styles of meditation too. It's just that shit is like super straightforward and accessible. So I think it's a good way to go. But yeah, it's something that is just sort of developed over time, and like the more you go there and the more that you visit it and work with it and visualize it, like the easier it is to just summon it or be there right away. Or like, I know some people like to like have a really prescribed way of getting there. Like I've talked to some people that like there's a very certain way that they like always access it. And actually, to be honest, like when I go there, I usually do find myself in the same point, which is like approaching the temple. I don't usually go right into it. Although I have before. It's not that it can't be done. It's just, I guess, for whatever reason, I'm in the habit of doing it a certain way. So like, I don't know, play around with it, and like everything else, like experiment and see what works for you and take good notes in your magic journal.
Hell yeah, dude.
Do you have any other questions? Is that like, I don't know, man, did that make any fucking sense at all?
Oh, absolutely. No, this one has been really fun, and I've been actually kind of trying to do an Astral Temple thing, just completely ad hoc. So I guess that means I'm doing it right, if it's just kind of intuitive. But yeah, I don't think
there is a right. Right?
Yeah,
just
right?
do it however it works for you.
There is no right? But yeah, so no, this episode has been great, dude. There's a lot to think about. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
All right, hell yeah, no, dude, I'm glad that you liked it, and thank you so much for coming back and being willing to talk about all this crazy shit.
Oh, hell yeah, dude, had a great time.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, any last thoughts, questions, or comments?
Is it possible that there's like a bunch of bad people in the world using this all like for their gain, do you think?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like, yeah.
Fuck yeah, dude. This is what I'm always bitching about. I don't know if I'm not saying that that's like some conspiracy or so. No, dude, like people are selfish and self-motivated. That's all. You don't need a conspiracy to have this happening, right?
Well said. Well said.
Cool. All right. Fuck yeah, Asher.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thanks again for having me. And yeah, if you ever want me to come back, just I'm available.
All right. Hell yeah. I'm sure we will. Won't be the last that we've seen of you. We can do more explaining Chaos Magick to my brother.
Hell yeah.
All right. Hell yeah.
Okay, bet.
Hosting, India, Go.
All right. Thanks again for Asher for being on the show. Side note, I was not able to figure out why Carl Sandburg wrote in that poem Salvage that he was glad that William Morris was a dead man. So if you know, you should write in and explain it to me. I would love that. Anyway, we talked about so much stuff in this episode. Gods, I know there was a few things that I could have done a better job explaining, or that I spoke about in a sort of like offhand way that might not have been as precise as I would prefer. So as always, please let me know if you have any questions, comments, corrections, or arcane revelations. Send them my way at luxoccultpod@gmail.com. And follow me on Instagram at The Mimetic Disease to see some of my experiments with bridging conventional, visual, digital, sorcery, all kinds of weird shit I'm fucking around with there. I want to hear what you're up to, though. I've had some really cool conversations recently about magic and stuff over email with people, which has been really awesome. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd super like to hear from everybody. Have you ever used role-playing games or art or whatever to make a hypersigil or work magic in some other way? You should let me know. So there was too many sources in this one to fit in the episode description. So I went ahead and published a Google Doc with it. So don't forget to check that out. I put a fuck ton of stuff in there. So if you like the stuff that we talked about in today's episode, that might be a good place to like start. Speaking of which, if you like the show, please subscribe and take a second to give it a review and some stars. I guess it's like super important. So I don't know. I would appreciate it if you would do that. Thank you so much. This shit is like a lot of work, but I really do think that getting the tools of magic into the hands of individuals is like super important, and it's super worth doing. And you can help me by telling a friend about the show or posting links or whatever. I want to give a shout out to Pat, who let me know just before I recorded this that he's starting to get some results. So fuck yeah, dude. I think that's fucking awesome. So keep it up, man. Hearing shit like that is super motivating. So yeah, if you like the show, you can thank me by doing magic to improve yourself, improve your life, and improve the world. And if you feel like it, you can tell me about your experiences. So there's an interview that I did with an old friend of mine, Scav, that's going to be coming out here in a little while, where we talk about like costume and cosplay in a way that touches on Chaos Magick. It's like really fun stuff, and it's just in time for Samhain or Halloween or All Hallows Eve, or however you like to call that. Speaking of that, I want to remind everyone that there's going to be a full moon that night, and that might be a really good time to work some magic. I have plans. Me and some others are going to be initiating an ongoing project that addresses some stuff that I think is really important. But even if you don't really do magic, I would urge you to consider just planning to take a little time out that night to like make a wish or set an intention, maybe light a candle, I don't know. I would just urge you to make your intentions or wishes positive. There's enough negativity floating around and being weaponized to manipulate people, so please don't add to that shit. So I remember when I learned to ride a bicycle, one thing that sticks out in my mind about the experience is how well it works as a metaphor for life in general. Apart from the stuff about falling down and getting back up again, you need to focus on the path ahead, not the trees lining the path. If you're looking at the trees instead of the path, you're gonna hit the trees. We need to be focusing on the path. Alright. In the Hitchhikers series by Douglas Adams, there's a race of aliens called the Vogons who write really shitty poetry and then force people to listen to it. And I don't want that to be me, which is why I keep putting this shit at the very end of the episode. So you can easily skip it if you want to, and that is your choice. And if you have chosen to continue to listen, here's something that I wrote called Esoteric Scientism. It's probably not done yet. I don't know. I don't fucking know. If the shadows are real, the fundamental element is curiosity, an interface of consciousness, the question and first blush of discovery, elation, frustration. And divinity? Divinity occurs where time folds back on itself, a time with more than one space, a space with more than one time. The wharf touching the weave, the network's nodes, and roots which stretch out etherically ad infinitum. By walking the tree, we discover our phylogeny, the branching paths of pasts and selves that twist through time until with the slightest tendrils they touch the moment where we stand, where I stand, before you, and am kneeling at the altar I have been building by years of yearning and learning, reciting poetry I wrote but do not understand. Stay curious. And keep focusing on the path ahead that leads to better times, not the one that doesn't. Stay strong. Resist. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna fucking make it that way.
3, Romeo, 2, 4, Yankee, Romeo, 7, Bravo, Delta, Quebec, Oscar, Papa, Tango, Papa, 3, Delta, Juliet, Mike, Oscar,